So once again, thank you, Rabbi Pinney and Helana Herman, for this important talk about marriage, getting set up strongly for marriage. And let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, so tonight's topic is gifting the relationship or the behavior change request. And the idea behind that is that we stretch into new behaviors. When I say stretch, it's kind of like what we learn in Chassidus about how, there's a certain midah that we're having trouble with, and we have to stretch into that. We have to begin to internalize that and make that part of our lives. And so that's really what this is about, is how to stretch into a new behavior that may not come naturally to you in your relationship.
And I think in Imago terms, which is what we're teaching, and in psychology today, we talk about baby steps. That you make one small baby step, and that can make a huge change, and that helps to stretch. And that's the same thing. I'm learning yoga right now with a private teacher, and every time I work with her, it's another little bit, and I keep thinking, I'm here. Nope, there's more. There's always more, but we do it little by little. So in the curriculum that we teach, which is called the Imago curriculum, and the one that we're using, we're very blessed that an Orthodox rabbi wrote this curriculum, Rabbi Shlomo Slatkin, and it's called Couplehood as a Spiritual Path.
He's also a counselor.
He's an Imago therapist, and he wrote this curriculum. And there are 6 chapters in this curriculum. And what we're teaching tonight is based on previous chapters. So I feel that it's important to give an overview of what has been taught up until this point and how you get to even stretching into new behaviors. And there's a whole foundation that came first. So I'm going to just give you a quick overview, and we're available to teach this over Zoom. We work with couples over Zoom. We should really do a class, so it's not each one by one, but we could do it in a class setting. Chapter 1, and we did a class for Adai Ad on this already, so please refer to the class we did. It's about creating a vision for your marriage. Creating a relationship vision. It's very important. All businesses do that, and marriages, I wish they would teach this in college class, and that's something that we're very interested in doing, is to be able to get to the couples before, within the first year or two, to help couples realize that it's important to create a vision for your marriage. And the way we do that is we write statements of what we want, and we write them in positive statements, and each person writes their own of what they view and wish for the marriage to be, and then they collaborate and they create a joint vision where they're both going towards the same goals. And if my spouse, Pinney, has something on the list that I didn't really go for, he doesn't force me to put it on my list, and I don't force him. We all the ones we have in common, we circle, we write a new vision, and the ones we did not have in common that we're not comfortable yet having on this document, on this vision, we put on the side, and we say, let's revisit this in a few months, because once the relationship is building and getting stronger, then we might be very open to changing and adding things that we are uncomfortable with. So that's what chapter 1 was. Want to explain chapter 2? It's all about the dialogue.
The dialogue. That's
so
our favorite
chapter 2,
thing.
right? We're going to just
and we covered this also. We covered this also with Adai Ad back in the day. And the dialogue basically it's something which every therapist, counselor, social worker is taught in school. When I got my master's in counseling, this is one of the things that they really stress to us, and what we practice in labs and things like that, which is it's called active listening or compassionate listening. We call it the Imago Dialog. And that is where the sender, the person who wants to share something, says it, and the receiver, the other person, actually repeats back what the other person said. Okay? And in the beginning, do it word for word. Don't get fancy and start trying to, start bringing in other things. Just mirror. We call it mirroring. Mirror back. Not in the funhouse mirror, a regular mirror. Just mirror back what the other person said.
Maybe it would be a good idea for us to demonstrate.
Let's do that.
Because the entire curriculum is based on this. And it doesn't matter if we taught this in a different class for Adai Ad, I feel that every time we teach it, we recommit to it ourselves as a couple.
No, great.
So, you mean we have to do what we're teaching?
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, we're going to do a quick demo, and then I'm going to go through the rest of the chapters just so you get an idea. We're just going to give you a foundation before we go right into tonight's class. We feel that it will be pointless if you don't have a foundation. So we thought tonight that I would share an appreciation with Pinney to give you a taste of the appreciation Imago Dialog. And here's how it looks. You start off by saying, is now a good time for me to share an appreciation?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to say, Pinney, that I really, really appreciate that you came home tonight on time and that you sat here with me and we mapped out what we wanted to teach and that we've been teaching this often and that we have a flow and we're just so, each one of us is just wants to do this, but that you are very, that you really came on time and that you're very excited to do this with me. And it's not just that you're like, oh no, here I go, I have to do this, but you're also very passionate about teaching this.
So what I hear you saying is that you appreciate that I came home on time tonight so that we could finish preparing. We've already prepared, but to finish preparing for our talk tonight. And that actually, time out. Helena actually said a lot more than we would typically share in a dialogue at one time. In other words, you would do it in bite-sized pieces because it's hard to remember so much stuff. You also said that how gratified you are that I'm a willing participant in sharing this and doing this together with you. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Is there more?
Not for now.
Okay.
So,
so that's the first part. So basically, I just repeated back what Helena said to me, okay? And again, you try and do it as exact and as mirroring as possible. The second step in the dialogue is to validate. And the validate says, it makes sense you would want to tell me this because, in our case, because I came home on time. And I am committed to doing this with you. And I do enjoy doing this together with you. Okay? So it's simply taking ownership of what you did, okay? What the sender said you did, you now take ownership. Obviously, this is an appreciation dialogue. It's much easier to reflect that back because you're feeling really good about yourself. Okay? When it's a conflict like you didn't come home on time, it's a little harder to do, but that's what Kabbalah Soil and Nivus is all about, right? Okay, so the second part is validating. It makes sense you would want to tell me this because I did come home on time and I do enjoy doing this together with you, and we're mapping out a really nice lesson for tonight. The third step in the dialogue is to empathize, to put some feeling words to this, okay? Not long teres or anything like that, simply the words, the feeling words, sad, mad, glad, etc. So I imagine that you might be feeling happy and excited and grateful. Are there any other words?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel primary.
Primary. Okay, important.
And seen.
And seen. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for sharing.
And thank you for listening.
We always thank the other person for sharing and for listening. And during the dialogue, we actually, especially in a conflict, can you imagine in a conflict asking the other person, could you share more about what you're upset with me about? Imagine that. Normally, we're trying to sweep as much under the carpet as we possibly can and trying to get out of Dodge as quickly as we can. And here in the Imago Dialog, we stay present and we're here listening to the other person, reflecting and inviting them to say even more. Obviously, it's done, and one of the buzzwords we've talked about in previous Adai Ads, in a safe way. Would be another way of saying it. But that's sort of how the dialogue works. So that's the dialogue.
Okay. Another foundational piece that we wanted to talk about is that there are 3 stages in every relationship. And you can find that for me.
Yes, ma'am.
And the first, and this happens with couples, it happens with if you're getting into a school that you wanted to go to, your dream seminary, you're starting a new career. So there are 3 stages in every relationship. So stage 1 is called the romantic stage or the euphoric stage. And that's when you're so excited and all you see is the good and it's just rosy. And with couples, actually, there are things that happen in the body that are the endorphins get released. And it's almost as if you're on a cocktail of drugs because it's the same result that people have when they take certain
Yes, do not try that at home, though.
right.
Yes.
So that's the romantic stage, and it lasts usually up to 18 months. And so we want all the young couples or anyone who's listening to this to know that there's nothing wrong with you, only right that if at a certain point you're starting to feel frustrated by your spouse and you're finding that, yes, you are craving romance and it's not as exciting as it was at the beginning and it needs work, right? So every garden needs watering. A garden grows where you water it and a relationship grows when you water it. You give it time and attention, and what used to come naturally now sometimes takes more effort. And kids come and then you're both working and or maybe not, whatever is happening in your life, that it takes a lot more effort to make time for each other where it used to be easier. And that is supposed to happen. And that's called, but it doesn't mean you stay that way, but you want to work on it. So that's called the conflict stage, or the, we have another word for it, power struggle stage. That's stage 2. And it happens, when I went to the Imago conference. And when I first was involved with Imago, I thought it was the greatest organization that ever existed. And then I got there and I started to see all the problems and all the warts and all the, how come no one calls me back? And how come this? And how come that? And then, so that's how it is in life. We start to see things that aren't comfortable.
And if I may add, very often it's the same thing. So you might have become attracted to someone who's easygoing and laid back, and you're just all about that. And then about, anywhere up to 18 months after that, you're like, can't you make a decision? Mm-hmm. I mean, do I have to plan everything? Mm-hmm. Right? Yes.
Okay. So then you work on that. And that's when all the tools of Imago come into play. And stage 3 is the enchantment stage, or the conscious love. When your eyes are wide open, you see all the faults and all the warts and all the different things that are, your partner's not perfect, your spouse is not perfect, and yet you can appreciate them for who they are, appreciate each other for who you are, and work together towards having something very beautiful and powerful and wonderful, even when it's not perfect, and even when the person is different or not what you thought they were going to be or what you hoped they were going to be, but now you're looking at them as a real person, right?
Absolutely.
And so those are the stages. And I found this bracha. It's one day when I was davening, it just hit me, and I said, this is the 3 stages of relationship. We have a bracha after the Yishtabach, and it says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, which is, blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates all things. And so for me, this is showing like who forms light, that's the euphoria, a romantic stage. And then creates darkness, that's when we feel the conflict stage and it feels dark. And then we make peace and create all things, and that's when we come to a new reality of when we're with our eyes open and we're able to accept the other person. And that's like a new...
Yisrin ha'or habar min ha'cheshach.
Right.
It's the light that comes out of darkness, which is more brilliant and more powerful, and is lasting, because you're taking the negativity of the darkness and you're transforming it into light.
Mm-hmm.
And how long is this second stage, or at minimum, how, it's not over in a week.
Yeah.
Usually it takes more than a week, but it'll take as long as you allow it to. And some people, unfortunately, never really get out of that stage, and they live a life like that for the rest of their lives. One of the things that we're very passionate about is trying to help people realize that there is another stage after that, and a really an amazing stage. And again, like anything, it absolutely takes work, and it takes time, and it takes a real dedication, just like exercise or yoga or whatever it might be.
Right. And so I don't know the answer. It's a good question, Devora. I don't know how long it lasts. Like,
I'm imagining it takes a while. I'm trying to stress that it's not like you move out of the 18 months, a few months of like figuring it out and then you're there. It's years of working through and becoming the ultimate the couple.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do have to figure that typically it will take years. Hopefully, it won't take decades. But again,
Right.
that's up to the couple. If they want to get help and if they're willing to be open to ideas and to techniques and different things. And again, Imago is not the only thing. It's what has worked for us and that we're very passionate about. But there's John Gottman and there's all these other.
You know what I want to say is that people don't have to be afraid, because for us, this is what I believe. When you have these tools and you have a toolbox while you're in the conflict stage and the power struggle stage, it doesn't have to feel so painful when you use these tools. So if you use the Imago Dialog, you're going to be able to have a much more comfortable experience of the conflict stage. If you have a vision for your marriage, then you're supposed to look at it like daily or weekly, and you read it and you just continue to look at each statement and work towards it. So even if it takes years, if you have some tools, it makes it more comfortable.
Right. It doesn't have to be devastating. It can be okay.
There's moments that you can have fun, and that's another chapter. Maybe we should teach that in our next class. That you want to add in times where you create kindnesses to each other, and you work towards these behaviors, and you add fun and playfulness into your relationship. It's very important. There's studies now, brain studies. We're able to really access so much by understanding the brain, and they say what heals stress, anxiety, and trauma is pleasure, healthy pleasure and joy through the couple. And in parenting, when parents are struggling with teens, if they can do pleasurable things with their children, take them on trips and give them gifts and work on the connection, that heals the brain. So does that help answer that?
Yeah,
question?
I mean, the way I always see it is that conflict, it doesn't mean fighting. It means merging of two perspectives. And I think that the word conflict sometimes connotes things for some people. So I think I wanted to talk to that.
Yes, thank you. I love what you just said. Don't you love that? Yeah, I really do. I think that is true. Saying power struggle could sound very harsh. Conflict can sound very harsh. So how did you say it, Devora? Like, it's the blending of two different perspectives. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be so daunting. I think that's a very good point.
But again, I think that is also is up to the couple to determine, well, my family does it this way, this is how our family did it, and this is the only right way to do it. Well, hopefully at some point you can say, all right, well, your family doesn't do it that way. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what I'm comfortable with, but it's another way to do things. And again, the couple between themselves will be able to work out what works for them. And again, like you said, it doesn't have to be that daunting. It'll only be as daunting as you make it out to be.
Mm-hmm. It's like moving from my way in your way to our way, and that takes time. And there is conflict in my way, in your way, and I will make a way that fits for who we are. It doesn't have to be exactly the way your parents folded the towels. Is the only way the towels have to be folded.
Exactly.
Yes. I think also, especially younger couples, I mean, there's a certain desire to defend the honor of one's family, one's parents, siblings, and that can be a great source of conflict.
Right.
Perspective.
Also, we didn't talk about, I don't know how much time we have tonight, but there's another whole tool where we have an assessment that couples can take called, are you the minimizer or the maximizer? So in relationships,
Turtle and hailstorm.
Right, we call it the turtle and the hailstorm. So in relationships, we usually marry our opposites. So someone who doesn't like conflict is the minimizer. They want to go in their shell or their cave. They really, really don't like conflict.
Sweep it under the rug, ignore it.
Right, so we call that the turtle. And the tiger or the hailstorm is the maximizer, the one that wants to talk about it and work on it. And the more that the hailstorms, the more the turtle wants to hide in the shell. And the more the maximizer knocks on the shell, the deeper in the shell the turtle goes. And there's ways around this. There are actual ways to navigate this.
And that's part of what we're doing tonight, really, with the behavior change request.
Absolutely. So we want, if the turtle can try to come out and say, I need a few minutes alone, I'll be right back, it helps the hailstorm calm down and not freak out. And if the hailstorm can learn to say, okay, I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to try to tone it down and say what I want to say in a lower tone of a voice. I can talk softer, then the turtle will want to come out.
Right.
We have experience with this, obviously. And you can probably guess who's the turtle. And
I am a teenage mutant ninja turtle.
So just to know that is also like relieving, like, oh, that's normal. This happens with all couples. Okay. So now we're going to go into, and so that was chapter 3 is really interesting. And I don't know really how to teach this in a small, short class. It's about why we get triggered and who we marry and why we marry them. And there's a subconscious strip here. Imagine you have a little like chip that's searching for somebody to marry that has the positive and negative traits of your primary caregivers, usually your parents, and you find that person and you're attracted to them, and that's why you marry them. And then you get married and everything, you guys just exactly trigger each other. And once you figure out, oh, I don't like when he does that because my mother did that or my father did that. And it doesn't mean you're exactly like your parents. It's a composite of both your parents. Your brain doesn't know the difference between father and mother. So we marry someone with a similar job to one of our parents. And we spoke about that in a different class. So once we know this, we have our eyes open. It's like living in the dark or turning the light on and knowing my personal story of us and why we act the way we act. And we teach that to couples. We can't teach it here. It's too short of a time.
And
right?
and just to clarify, when we're talking about trigger, we're talking about, look, we have reactions to things, but when the reaction is much greater than the norm, okay, that's what Helena is saying when she's talking about a trigger. When it triggers you to such an emotional outburst that is,
or where you want to hide,
or right, or where you again, either way, that it's more extreme than, let's say, the normal bell curve. That's a sign that there's something else going on, that you experience some type of frustration, upset, trauma, whatever it might be, way before you ever met. And the good news is, to the spouse, you only did about 5%. 10%? All right, 10%. What's another 5%, right?
90% happened.
But 90% happened before you ever met. So it's not, you didn't do it. Helena used the example. Imagine you break your arm and you forgot you broke your arm. Then somebody touches your arm. You say, you broke my arm. No, you didn't break my arm. You know, I didn't break your arm. It was already broken. Okay, I just touched it. And it's the same thing with a couple, that they will touch those broken spots and it feels like they did it, but they didn't. It's been there. It's been with you for a long time. And just like when we have a pain, it means we need to get it checked out. When we have that feeling, it means we need to give some attention to it, loving attention to it, recognize where it came from, and we can begin the healing process.
Right. And when couples start to see each other not as the enemy, but as healing partners. Now, I'm not my husband's therapist, but if I know that if I boss Pinney around, it's going to remind him of somebody in his past, then I'm just hurting something that was already painful. Why do I need to cause him more pain? And once I know that, then I can say it in a different way. And I want to say it in a different way because I don't want to cause you more pain.
Right.
And the same with you. If you come late and you know that my father came late because he was doing surgeries because he needed to, he was a doctor, and that was very important for his job, but for the child, it was painful. So when you you know, when you come late, you know that you try to at least call me or text me or let me know. So why should you cause me more pain?
Right. And just to continue that thought, so when we talk about marrying somebody who's similar, I'm not necessarily my father-in-law, but Helena decided she'll never marry a doctor because doctors are unpredictable. You never know when they're coming and when they're going, right? So what does she do? She marries a rabbi and a shliach. It's the same thing, but without the Porsche, right? And you don't know when he's coming or going, and there's an emergency, and you got to run here, you got to run there. So you sort of recreate that experience, but this time it's a level playing field. It's not a child-parent relationship. It's an adult to an adult relationship, and hopefully this time you can get it right.
Exactly. So now
I think I just want to stress on that. Every couple has. It's not as if you married a wrong person.
No.
Who you would have married, there would have been something.
That's exactly, what a great point.
Yes, and actually, when Helena found out about this at the Knesset Shluchos many, many years ago, and the topic of the talk was incompatibility is the grounds for a perfect marriage. So you did not marry the wrong person. You married the exact right person for you, because this is how you're going to grow.
Not only that, here's the secret. If you think you're going to go out of that box and go into a new box, you're going to take yourself right with you wherever you go, and you're going to find the next person who is going to have similar things that might look a little different, but it's impossible. Hashem wants us to heal in relationship, and so we're going to not escape and find somebody else that's going to make it, it's going to be the same stuff. You're going to have to work on it eventually. And
again, we're not talking about abuse or anything along those lines. I mean, that's a whole different, I'm just talking about, again, the normal bell curve of differences between couples and things like that.
Because obviously there's reasons sometimes that people have to separate, God forbid.
Yes.
But we're talking about regular complaints, right?
Right.
So tonight's topic is how to stretch into new behaviors. And Pinney was going to,
let me talk about that. Yeah. So we call it Imago calls it the behavior change request, or gifting the relationship, giving a gift to the relationship. And it begins with a premise, first of all, is that, to paraphrase JFK, ask not what your marriage can do for you, ask what you can do for your marriage, okay? What you can do for your relationship. And imagine, we're just reading about the building of the Mishkan in the past few weeks, and we learned about the Aron. And the Aron, the kaperes, the lid that goes on the Aron, had the two kruvim that were facing each other, right? And according to some opinions, one was male, one was female, and it actually represents the relationship between husband and wife. And so when we get married, we have to realize that we're still individuals. I'm still me, you're still you. But then there's a space that's in between. We call that the relationship. And gifting the relationship means, what can I put into that space in between to make that relationship stronger, to gift that relationship, to fill that love tank? It would be another example that's from, I forget who else who talks about that. But what can I do to fill that up, okay? And as we get to know each other better, we realize, okay, something that's really important for Helena is for me to be on time. And if I'm not going to be on time, to at least call ahead of time to let her know, okay? Which is a meshulcha thing to do, but not always a mess. What are you going to do? And so the idea is that my gifting the relationship is going to be that I'm going to make sure to do that no matter what's going on, even if I'm in the middle of an important meeting, I can say, hold on one moment, I have to make a quick phone call, okay? Because I know how important that is to Helena, which means the relationship in between the two individuals, that common ground, that is what I'm trying to feed.
And I think that would be called, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a book that Chapman wrote that's about the 5 languages of love. And there's actually a Jewish version that he wrote together with a rabbi. And it's a great book. So that's what we're talking about. What languages of love can fill this relationship? And so,
continuing with the Aron metaphor, the Torah tells us that Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, Me'el HaKaperes, Mibein Shnei HaKruvim. That Hashem spoke to Moshe from the Kaperes, from that lid of the Aron, of the ark, from between the two Kruvim. So specifically that space in between that's where Hashem talks to us. And so that's how we bring in the third partner of a relationship, husband-wife, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem into that relationship. And that's where God speaks to us, and that's how we create an incredibly meaningful and enchanted relationship.
Right. And if you want more ideas of how to fill that space with goodness, there's another book, it's right back there, The Power of Attachment. Diane Poole Heller, it's the pink one all the way back there, right there.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
And she has like 11 SASS, she calls them SASS, secure attachment skills, that are, it's so amazing for couples, like eye contact, like making rituals of good morning and good night, really, really listening, putting your phone down. This is just a few of them. And so that's a really great thing. And what breaks or hurts the space in between is criticism, yelling, judgmental, all that kind of negativity is what can tear apart or cause, you know, I don't want to call it a breakdown, but chip away at this space that we want to
a concealment.
Yeah, we want to keep this strong. So we're going to make mistakes, of course, but we want to keep it as much as we can. And that's the other, John Gottman teaches 5-to-1 rule, that you want to have 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction to keep the relationship strong. So if you have an issue and you have something negative, just try to do another 5 positives, right?
Absolutely.
So let's now, oh yeah, do you want to explain that? So we're going to now go into the behavior change request. We're going to explain it and we're going to do an example of it right now. So there's 2 ways of doing it. One is you make a request. You ask. That's why it's called a behavior change request. So this is also, first of all, it's not a demand. It's a request. Demands already hurt the relationship. So we are asking a request. So I might, let's say I have a need or a want from Pinney. I would break this down and I would ask him for 3 things. Now, it's easy to complain. It's harder to say what you want. So people complain. My husband doesn't, I don't know.
Never has time.
He doesn't have time for me. Okay.
Always
Or
on his
he's
phone.
not, he's always on his phone. Yeah, that's a complaint I hear all the time from
Yes.
women, by the way. A lot of women are telling me this. So, or if someone says, my husband's not, you know, romantic enough. Well, what, can you be specific? Because you're just complaining. It's not going to help. So this tool helps you break it down. And you ask for 3 things, 3 specific things.
And if I can just break in for a second, and I think that's one of the great things about Imago in general, is that, you know, I mean, you listen to different speakers, great speakers and great talks, okay? And they'll say things like, you need to really, really listen, or you need to really hear the person, or I don't know, I'm trying to think, I can't think off the top of my head, you know, what does that mean?
They never tell you how.
How do you, what do you mean really listen? Okay, I'm really going to listen. What does that mean? Listen with compassion. What does that mean? And that's what we found in Imago, is that it tells you how to do that. So not just conceptually, it's a good thing to do, but it teaches you this is how you can do it. I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but this is what we have found that works for us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are these 2 styles. One is I'm going to ask for 3 things, and then Pinney would pick one or 2 of them, and I have to ask them in the SMART acronym, which is, can you find that? It's on page either 104 or 106. Okay, so SMART acronym is, it has to be small. S stands for small and specific. M, so this is the acronym of SMART. M stands for measurable. A, attainable. R, relevant. And T, time limited. So I have to pick 3 things that are following all those things, that whole acronym.
I just interrupt for a second. When you say 3 things, is 3 separate things or 3 things related, 3 options related to the one request that you
It would
want?
be 3 separate ideas related to this request that I have. Let's say I am complaining about something. Then I have to turn it into 3 different requests. And then because the brain, people like choices. Okay, that's the point of it. So if I just ask for one thing, and it might be hard for Pinney, but if I ask for 3 different things and he can pick 1 or 2, it makes it a lot easier for him.
So you take more ownership over it.
Right. Now, but to be honest, it's a good one, behavior change request, but we like gift of change better. So there's two ways of doing this. One is I'm going to ask for what I want, and Pinney will pick one or two of them. There's another way of doing it, which we want to teach tonight, maybe stretch it out a little longer, really explain it well, is gifting the relationship. And which would mean that Pinney will look at the vision that we created. You know, with all those different statements, we have a marriage vision. And one of the vision statements that we have is we spend quality time together, okay? So Pinney is going to now gift me and our relationship something based on that he knows that I want that, and he knows that's on our vision.
It's on our vision statement. I mean,
Right.
we agreed that is something which we value, and
Right.
we want to do that.
So I like this one better because we've been doing this for like 23 years. Okay, we're married 33 years. And the first 10 years we did not have tools. We tried reading different books, but it really was not easy.
Okay, it wasn't so bad.
Right. It was difficult navigating conflict, I can tell you that.
That it was.
So we got these tools 10 years in, and we've been using them for 23 years. And I happen to like the gifting of the relationship better than the behavior change request, because I find that when the person themselves is offering the gift, they keep to it more than if I ask for something. That's just my experience. They both valid, they both work. I found myself reminding more when it was me asking.
Really? Can't imagine.
So when Pinney will say, and my couples that we work with, when we have them gifting the relationship, we find that they're committed to it more. So we're going to do it a lot.
But either way, like Helena said, either way works. And sometimes, and one way may work better for a couple based on their dynamic or based on certain personality quirks and things like that. So whatever works for you.
Right. So
I just want to jump in there. If Helena is the one who wants more time, what would make Pinney recognize that it's not happening as Helena needs or wants? Like, what would make him realize that of the 10 statements that's the one to focus on right now?
it's a very good question.
Good question.
It's a very good question. Well, usually if the couple is practicing the dialogue for conflict often, then they're going to know, because it's always being brought up with the dialogue. They're going to know. But it's fine if I would say to Pinney, I'm looking at our vision statements, and the one that I would really like more of is the one about spending time together. So I could just say that and point out which one that really is feeling a lack for myself. And if we have a lot of positivity going on, and we believe very strongly that the dialogue needs to be used for appreciations very often, because then there's less conflict. And we also don't let our couples do any conflict dialogue without first sharing 2 or 3 appreciations for each other, because it's like, imagine falling on a hard floor or putting pillows all along the floor and then falling down. It's a lot easier to fall when there's pillows. So when you do want to share a conflict dialogue, but each of you have shared 2 appreciations for each other before you go into conflict, it just makes it so much more pleasant. And sometimes you don't even have anything else to say, because the conflict disappears, because whatever it is you wanted, you already got.
You realize, oh, no, I actually do have that. I think also, just for everybody out there in TV land, the mirroring can feel a little stilted. I mean, it still does sometimes. But what we found is that it works a lot better than having like a knockdown drag out till 2 o'clock in the morning, which really I do not recommend.
That's old nostalgia, right?
Yes.
So what I'm understanding then is that it's part of a culture. It's not an isolated tool that you can pick up on January 1st and say, I'm doing this on January 1st and haven't been doing anything for the last 12 months. It's not like it has to fit into the culture.
This is a process, and you're internalizing a different way, okay? You're reacting to something, instead of acting emotionally, right? This is Siddur 101, okay? You ask for an appointment to express your frustration. You don't just yell it out, okay? That's Siddur 101, right? And
I think you've already saying.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we got it, yeah.
That she's saying couples might want to just use this tool, but not have any of the
Right.
other tools.
Right. Right. And so that's exactly right. And so when you start doing this more and more, this becomes a natural outgrowth of the process that you have already started. Yeah, thank you.
So we're going to give a quick example of this so you see a live example. So what it is that, so Pinney decided he was going to give a gift of change to me. And yeah, so do you want to go through that? And you'll say it's now a good time for me to share.
All right. Is now a good time for me to share a gift of change to our relationship?
Very good time. Yes.
I've never, she's never said it's not a good time. Amazing.
It's a great time. Yes, it's a great time.
Okay. In our vision statement, we wrote and we agreed that we spend couple time together, private time, just the two of us together.
So what I hear you saying is that in our marriage vision, one of the statements in our whole vision is that we will spend as a couple quality time together. Did I get that right?
You did.
Is there more?
Now, one of the things that you can do is you can actually sort of deepen what you're sharing, okay? The reason why this is important to me is because growing up, I saw my parents go out periodically, and it really, I could tell I could see how it enhanced their relationship and just the joy that they had in their relationship.
Wow. So what I hear you saying, I'm going to put my hand up. That means I need to just get that part. I can't repeat too much, otherwise it's an overload and my brain won't remember. So what I hear you saying is that this is actually important to you as well, part of our vision, because you saw your parents spending time together and going out, and you noticed that they came back happier or fulfilled, and so you saw that it really helped and enhanced their marriage.
Right.
Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Is there more?
There is. I have a fear that given the fact that we both work, and again, I'm making some of this stuff up, with being involved with the children and everything that they have to do, that we may grow apart, chas v'sholom, and we may lead parallel lives. Time out. Parallel life means we're just going along with life, but we're not really interacting much. We're so busy who's picking up the kids and who's taking out the garbage and who's doing this and who's doing that.
Making it up. He's not making it up, but we don't have little kids right now.
We don't have little kids that were taking the karate or anything like that.
Right.
But so I'm just trying to sort of to share what some of the fears might be if we don't take the time to actually interact as a couple.
So you have some fears that if we don't do this, we might end up living like parallel lives where we're not interacting so much because we're both working and there's other things that are going on in life.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. And so my gift of change that I would like to give to our relationship is that for the next 4 weeks.
So now you're going to use the SMART acronym?
Using SMART, right? For the next 4 weeks, once a week, we will take turns planning a date night on Wednesday evenings.
So what I hear you saying is that for the next 4 weeks, we're going to take turns planning a date night. Now, is that for real? Because Pesach's going to be in the middle of that.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tori. Now I got to do the behavior change request thing. Thanks for nothing.
You could defer till after Pesach again.
We can skip that week. Okay. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to take turns having a date night on Wednesday nights. I'm really excited about this. And did you say for how long? Like at least 2 hours or something like that?
Okay. So and then
you have to follow this small, attainable, relatable, relevant, and time limited.
Right.
And there's a reason why you have to do it that way.
Right. Absolutely. And so if I don't get something in the SMART, Helena can say, oh, well, how long is the date going to be for? So, okay, well, yes, it'll be for 2 hours.
At least.
At least.
Okay.
Not including drive time.
Okay. All right. So so that's basically what it is. And then I guess you would ask, would that be something you want?
Yeah.
And I would love that. Yes. Thank you so much. I would love that. So,
now, whoever's doing the gift of change, remember to do it. Put it on your calendar or else it won't be good.
On the other hand, you also asked or offered for her to do part of that gift exchange because she has to plan 2 of them.
That's right.
I don't mind that.
But she could say, I can't
Yeah.
choose.
And she could say, you know what?
There's room for negotiation here.
Yes. No,
Starting-
absolutely. You can renegotiate everything. You can see. She can say, you know
Like,
what?
here, I'll do an example. If you look at the calendar, Pesach's in the middle, so I would like to skip that week of Pesach and then following, because we really want to put it on the calendar, so then it would be the following Wednesday.
Right. So yes,
Or even the week before Pesach. I think my parents are getting here that day, so that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So maybe this week and next week, and then we take a break. But we need to. If you don't figure it out, it's not good.
Right.
Because
so you need to renegotiate. Yes. So it's okay to renegotiate.
If it's too fluffy and too up there, it's not really going to work. So you really do need to. Yeah. And you're exactly right, Devora. If I didn't want to plan it, which is not true because I'm a planner and I want to, and I want him to succeed. So I'm happy that he's even going to go 2 out of 4. So it's going to be really exciting to see this. I can't wait to see how this goes.
Me too.
So, but that's what it's like. And you can renegotiate. You could say, well, I don't like Wednesday, or I really don't, this is a gift. So I could say, well, I don't want to do it. Can you just do 2? And I don't have to do any, but I'm happy with what he asked for. But does that make sense?
Yes, and I also think one of the things I'm just envisioning, some people say like, where someone is offering the gift, but only half-heartedly, like they didn't really think about which day of the week. They're like kind of going through the emotions, and I think that's only half-hearted, and you only get half results. So it's not as if like I have to do this, because we just so this is a very nice thing to offer, so I'm going to do it. But I don't really care which day of the week. Like I don't put any thought into the day of the week. Like it almost, let's say that your husband or wife goes to exercise on Tuesday nights, but you just like throw it out there. Okay, let's do it Tuesday. Like you didn't even put thought into it. I think it can backfire. Like it has to be real thinking.
You raise a tremendously important point. Okay. And I think it's something which in general, couples need to take into account. This is not a game. We're not playing football and we're not keeping score. Okay. Very, very important. All right. Helena naturally does this more than I do. It is a much bigger stretch for me than it is for Helena. Surprise, surprise. I'm sure you couldn't tell from everything that went on so far tonight. So Helena really needs to practice her Me'ach Shal Talalev, and she has to say, okay, he's trying. Let me help him here.
Right.
he's out of his league. He doesn't know what he's doing. So
not because he's half-hearted.
Right.
But he's not a natural planner. And if you do the Myers-Briggs personality type, so Pinney would be more of a P, which is a perceiver, which means he likes more to go with the flow or spontaneous. And if it's going to happen, it'll happen on its own. But that doesn't always work. So I'm happy to say, well, you know what? I really like what you're doing here, but I would like to make a request. Let's get the calendar out when we end up the Adai Ad. I'm actually going to make him do this. We're going to plan it out, and we're going to have I want to know when he's doing it and when I'm doing it. Otherwise, no one's going to do it. Right. And then it's really a disaster.
So it is important that you do get specific, and it's important for the receiver to take the person at their word and not start that whole chatter in the back. Oh, they don't really mean it. They don't really want to do it. Obviously, they schedule on a time when I'm not available, so it's either just right. And so what happens is, in general, with these things,
this is really important. I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say? The S word?
Sabotage.
Sabotage. You got it. It is very easy for the receiver to sabotage this whole thing. Helena could cut me off at the knees 20 different ways right now, okay, if she wants to, all right? And couples do that. That's all part of the game. That's all part of that power struggle that goes on. But if you're willing to look at it in a mature adult way, again, Mayach Shalit al Halev, the mind controls the emotions, okay? Take the person at face value, right? And even, the Rambam says, you beat the guy up till he says, I want to. You're beating him up. No, deep down, he really wants to. Okay. So deep down, I really do want to have a relationship with Helena. I do want to have connection with Helena, even if it doesn't always feel like I'm as invested or I put as much time into it or whatever else it is. I really do want to. And so if Helena can look at it from that perspective, She can help me succeed. But again, it goes back to getting rid of the ego. Humility is absolutely essential in a relationship. And that, again, is one of the foundational, not prerequisites, but one of the foundational elements of Imago.
The trick is, and it's such a good point you brought up, is that okay, so let's say Pinney's not doing what he said he was going to do. So I have a choice. I could either get really upset, which I've done before, and then he gets upset, I get upset, and then it's just like, oh, it's just, or I could say in a calmest voice, or I could write it even, write him a note, or I write him a text, like, I'm really looking forward to this evening. I can help him, right? Or
I get the text like, oh shoot, it's tonight, right? I gotta plan something. Quick.
Right. Or if you just help the person. And one of the things to do is to lower your tone and try to say it as if you're saying it to like your girlfriend who you don't want to insult. So you can say to yourself, what would I say to a friend? Because my marriage, I want to be a friend first, friendship first. And so what would I say if this was a friend who forgot something? I want to speak, and if I can lower my tone and if I can talk with kindness, usually you'll get your needs met. It might take a little longer, but it's like, oh, then they feel bad that they forgot, and then they might even do more than they said because they feel bad. But if you start yelling and criticizing, then the person, you're already wrong because you're yelling and criticizing, and then they get defensive because, we really might have a good reason why we're upset. But if we say it with yelling, we're like automatically wrong or hurting the relationship.
Exactly.
I've seen people work with, like, I knew he wouldn't do it. They were like waiting to catch. I'm not him. It goes both ways. But I was waiting to catch. I didn't want to remind him because if it was important to him, then he would remember, and I didn't have to remind. Like that whole.
That's the problem.
That's the big sabotage kind of word because
you're
absolutely
right. And this Harville Hendricks and his wife Helen, who created Imago, so they have a book called Getting the Love You Want. And they have another book they wrote, an entire book on what you just said, Devora, and it's called Receiving Love. It's an entire book on, because they themselves were sabotaging each other, and they had to write a whole book. They almost got divorced, and then they hired the couples that they trained to help them, and they found out things that they didn't know before that they can now teach others, and that they recommitted to their own marriage. And they also wrote another book, which is great. It's called Making Marriage Simple.
Sounds like an oxymoron, but it actually is a book.
Making Marriage Simple. And it's just, so they're living what they're teaching, and we're trying to do that. Every time we teach, we recommit.
Yeah, it definitely gives an extra boost.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me that you're cool. Absolutely.
Right? We teach what we need to learn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that's it for this one, for this topic. Is there any other questions you have, Rory?
Yeah, so I could see how a health star would do more of the requesting, but a turtle coming out to ask, I imagine that's a little bit harder because they're asking to a hailstorm and because they are a turtle. So what might we say to the turtle to do the asking rather than just wishing or resenting?
Well, if you follow the curriculum, like if a couple orders this curriculum, and you can order it, anyone can order this. They say it could be a take home. You can do it yourself. I mean, I think it's nice to have a coach or someone to help you go through it. But even if you don't, if you follow the curriculum, then you're forced to do it. The turtle has to do it because it's part of chapter 5 that I'm going to do it and he's going to do it. If you're following a curriculum, it makes it easier to do, don't you think?
It is, but as the turtle in the room, I will say it is, again, depending on how much of a turtle you are, it can be extremely difficult to figure out what you really want. I mean, because you're so busy, if you're a people pleaser or you're just so busy taking care of others, you never really think about yourself. My brother would say, I forget where you heard it, but you have to have a self in order to be selfless. And I think for a lot of us turtles, we lose ourselves and we don't even know what we want. So I do have a hard time figuring out what kind of things I want in our relationship. It can be a struggle for me.
So one of the things Pinney would ask me for is, give me the benefit of the doubt. That's not easy to do because it's
And
not
it's not smart. It's not
not in
measurable.
the SMART.
Yeah.
But I still do work on that. I work on that. And one more thing I want to tell you, there's some really good news. And that is when Pinney started, one of the first requests we ever made, we did the Imago 2-day seminar. We went to Shmuel Stauber, he passed away, but I love Shalom.
Yeah.
One of the first requests was that Pinney would find me when he comes home and find me before he goes to the mail. This was years ago. We first did it. And after Pinney did that for a few weeks, I didn't even need it anymore. So that's the good news. If Pinney's late sometimes.
It's not a life sentence.
No, it's not a life sentence. Like if Pinney's late sometimes now, I don't freak out like I used to. So, we each want to become a little more like the other. Like Pinney's more on time and he calls me more, then I don't feel as needy about that. And then I can relax more. And so eventually what you want is that each person in the relationship takes on a little bit of the other. So the
Right.
turtle's less turtley and the hailstorm's less hailstorm.
And as you stretch into a new behavior, generally what happens is that you become your best self. That's another thing that we talk about a lot.
I think we did that one of it.
Yeah, I think we did. But anyway, it's good to just mention again. So in other words, when I do what Helena's request is, or what I know Helena wants, which is for me to be accountable for being on time, and if I'm not going to be on time, to at least call, I'm being my best self, because that's a menschliche thing to do. Okay? And when Helena is able to speak in a softer voice and not criticize and do those kinds of things, she's being her best self. So the request that we're making is not actually just for the person who's making the request or has the need, but it's actually the exact thing that the other person needs.
Well, that makes sense. It needs to work on it because they're not doing it right now. And that's why I'm not getting it. So it makes sense. But that's what they always are saying, that marriage is the best self-help or other help or better self.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. We're stronger together.
Right.
Yes.
And I think the culture that this creates is not a one-time or pull out this tool when I absolutely need it. It has to be part of a culture. So then everyone's more comfortable making the request, hearing the request, giving to the request, gifting. It doesn't just come because someone decides they read the book today or listened to this talk today. It's a culture.
Absolutely. The Rebbe told doctors, oncologists, and cancer researchers, preventative is the best thing. Don't wait till you have the problem. And we love getting couples earlier on in their marriage before they've picked up a whole bunch of bad habits, because it's much easier to, it's harder to unlearn and then relearn. And when couples are in like dire need, of course, we're happy to help in any way that we can. But when people are not yet in dire need, that's the time to get help so that you never get to the red zone.
Right. So we don't even call this marriage therapy. What we're teaching is marriage tools. And I wish everybody had it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the goal of Adai Ad. That's the goal that you have. A lot of us are trying to help people before they get into where it gets much harder and it's much more entrenched. So let's entrench good habits and good culture rather than have to detrench, whatever the verb is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I think we're speaking to mostly from people here in Adai Ad, is that right?
Right, that's right.
So if there are things that we have that help us enhance our relationship because we have Shabbos and we know that we have time together. There's things that make it harder, like sometimes minyan makes it harder, or certain activities aren't kosher, so we have to figure out and be creative on how we can have fun and playful and laugh and all these things. So laugh, of course, but I'm saying there's certain things there's certain restrictions, so it doesn't mean we can't have them. We just have to be more creative.
Yeah, and don't use the neither time to say we can't go out on a date. Well, you absolutely can go on a date. Maybe not be able to go on a speedboat, but you can still go out on a date. Okay. And there are times, even Shabbos, people can use that to sabotage. I'm too busy cooking for Shabbos. No, I'm too exhausted. I have no time for you. Well, that's not what it's supposed to be like. Maybe you need to have less guests. I know that might sound, sacrilegious.
Or some weeks you don't have guests.
Yeah.
Or you can make less food for the guests.
Exactly, less food.
Absolutely.
I agree. I wish I could make a whole campaign. I told one of my clients we're going to make we're going to be trailblazers and less food. What?
Minimalist.
Minimalist.
Let's start with Pesach. Minimalist Pesach.
You know what? But COVID has kind of taught us that we
Yes.
can do with a lot less than we think. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, it's okay to have a Shabbos alone sometimes.
Sometimes it's wonderful. So thank you for this. We'll share your information and the documents that you share. We'll put also on the website and the links to the previous talks that you mentioned throughout the talk, and links to get to reach out to you, to Helena and Pinney. And I think this has been very, very helpful. And I look forward to next time.
Thank you.
God
Thank
willing.
you so much.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.